There is a silent habit controlling your life, and you call it kindness. Every time you explain yourself to people who already decided to misunderstand you, every time you chase a reply that never comes, every time someone ignores your value and you desperately try to prove it, you hand them something they never earned: your peace. And the painful part is, deep down, you already know this. You can feel it every time you stare at your phone waiting for a message. Every time someone's opinion changes your mood. Every time one person's silence steals an entire day from your life. Here's the question you've been avoiding. What if the people hurting you aren't stronger than you? What if they're simply using the one weakness you refuse to admit you have? The need to be noticed. The need to be understood. The need to matter in someone else's eyes. That is the invisible chain keeping millions emotionally imprisoned. They don't control you because they're powerful. They control you because they know exactly what you cannot ignore. And today, that chain breaks. If you're one of the few people willing to face uncomfortable truths instead of running from them, subscribe and join this community. This isn't for people looking for comfort. It's for people ready to reclaim their minds. And before we go deeper, write these words in the comments. My mind belongs to me, not because I need engagement, but because transformation begins the moment you publicly choose a new identity. Most people believe ignoring someone is childish. Stoicism teaches something completely different. Ignoring is not about punishment. It is about freedom. There is a difference. One comes from ego. The other comes from mastery. Very few people understand that distinction, and that misunderstanding has kept them emotionally exhausted for years. You believe your suffering begins when someone insults you. It doesn't. It begins the second you decide they deserve access to your emotions. Think about that. An insult is only sound. A betrayal is only an event. Rejection is only information. Yet your mind transforms these moments into prisons because you refuse to stop feeding them attention. Attention is the real currency of power. The one who controls your attention controls your life. That truth should disturb you, because if someone can ruin your mood without touching you, if one text message can destroy your confidence, if one person's approval determines whether you sleep peacefully, then your life isn't yours anymore. It's rented out to strangers. Marcus Aurelius never had social media. He never waited for blue ticks. He never refreshed a screen hoping someone would validate his existence. Yet the battlefield he fought still exists inside you, not against enemies, against reactions, against impulses, against the desperate desire to be acknowledged. Every day your mind asks the same dangerous question: what do they think about me? The Stoic mind asks something entirely different. Why do I care? One question creates anxiety. The other creates freedom. Notice something strange. The strongest person in every room rarely speaks the most. They rarely argue. They rarely defend themselves. People mistake this for weakness. It is actually the highest form of psychological strength, because they discovered something that most people never learn. Every explanation is an invitation. Every defense is permission. Every emotional reaction tells the other person exactly where your wounds are hidden. Imagine walking into battle wearing armor with glowing arrows pointing toward your weakest spot. That's exactly what emotional reactions do. Every angry message, every emotional paragraph, every desperate attempt to prove yourself, every unnecessary argument. You're revealing your vulnerabilities one sentence at a time, and the people who manipulate others, they are watching carefully. Not your words, your reactions, because reactions reveal where control exists. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to know exactly which buttons to press? It's almost supernatural. They mention one name, they question one decision, they ignore one message. Suddenly you're emotional. That isn't coincidence. It's conditioning, like a puppeteer learning which strings move the puppet. The frightening part isn't that they discovered your weaknesses. The frightening part is that you help them discover them, one reaction at a time. This is why emotional control isn't just wisdom, it's protection. The less people understand what moves you, the less they can move you. Seneca understood something modern psychology continues to prove. Expectation creates suffering faster than reality ever could. You expect loyalty, you expect gratitude, you expect fairness, you expect appreciation, and every unmet expectation becomes another wound. But here's the paradox. The world never promised any of those things. Your expectations did. Read that again in your mind. Most emotional pain isn't created by life. It's created by the story you expected life to follow. That realization changes everything. Because if expectations are chains, then detachment becomes freedom. But detachment doesn't mean you stop loving people. It means you stop making your peace dependent on them. That's a completely different life. You begin enjoying people instead of needing them. You appreciate loyalty instead of demanding it. You value respect instead of begging for it. And something unexpected happens. People start respecting your silence more than they respected your explanations. Why? Because scarcity creates value. Think about the person who constantly texts first, constantly apologizes, constantly explains, constantly seeks reassurance. Over time, their presence becomes predictable. Predictability destroys mystery. Mystery creates respect. This is why silence unsettles people. Not because silence is loud, but because it forces people to hear themselves. Most conversations are actually distractions. People speak endlessly because they're terrified of meeting the person living inside their own heads. Noise protects them. Silence exposes them. That's why the strongest people become comfortable alone. Not because they hate people, because they no longer fear themselves. Loneliness terrifies the average mind. Solitude strengthens the disciplined one. There is an enormous difference. One feels abandoned, the other feels liberated. Which one are you living? Most people never ask themselves that question. Instead, they run toward constant stimulation, notifications, entertainment, arguments, relationships, anything that prevents them from sitting quietly with their own thoughts. Because silence reveals uncomfortable truths. It reveals insecurity hiding beneath confidence. It reveals fear disguised as ambition. It reveals dependency pretending to be love. And once you see those truths, you cannot unsee them. That's exactly why most people keep running. Because the greatest confrontation is never with another person. It's with yourself. And this is where ignoring becomes something much deeper than people imagine. It stops being a tactic. It becomes an identity. You no longer ignore people to make them chase you. You ignore everything that steals your inner freedom. Pointless arguments, needless validation, petty competition, artificial status, empty praise, manipulative criticism. Suddenly your attention becomes sacred. Not everyone deserves access to it. Not every opinion deserves space inside your mind. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every invitation deserves your presence. You begin filtering life differently, and people notice. Some admire it, others resent it, because your boundaries expose the absence of theirs. The moment you stop reacting, something fascinating happens. The people who once controlled your emotions begin losing their influence. Not because they changed, because you did. And that's when the real psychological battle begins. Because the moment you become emotionally unavailable to manipulation, the world doesn't simply accept your freedom. It tests it, harder than ever. The moment you become emotionally unavailable to manipulation, the world doesn't simply accept your freedom. It tests it, harder than ever. This is the part nobody warns you about. You think that once you stop reacting, life becomes peaceful. It doesn't. First, it becomes louder. The people who once controlled you begin to notice something has changed. The messages become more frequent. The criticism becomes sharper. The guilt becomes heavier. the silence becomes intentional. They are not responding to who you are. They are responding to the fact that their old methods no longer work. Most people fail here, not because they are weak, because they mistake the test for failure. The moment someone ignores them, they panic. The moment someone becomes cold, they chase. The moment someone misunderstands them, they rush to explain. Without realizing it, they rebuild the prison they had just escaped. Freedom is fragile in the beginning. Like a fire, it must be protected before it becomes strong enough to survive the wind. This is why your first instinct cannot be trusted. Your first instinct was programmed by years of emotional conditioning. Someone rejects you. Your mind says, fix it. Someone criticizes you. Your mind says, defend yourself. Someone distances themselves. Your mind says, find out why. Notice something. Every instinct points outward. Almost none point inward. Stoicism reverses that direction. Instead of asking, why are they treating me this way? You begin asking, why am I allowing this to disturb my peace? That single question changes the battlefield. The battle is no longer against people. It is against your own impulses. And that battle is infinitely more important, because if you conquer yourself, no one else can conquer you. This is why emotional strength is invisible. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek applause. It doesn't need witnesses. It exists quietly beneath every decision you make, every message you choose not to send, every argument you choose not to enter, every insult you choose not to answer, every expectation you choose to release. People think nothing happened. In reality, a revolution happened inside your mind. The strongest victories are the ones nobody sees. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he spent more time mastering his own thoughts than controlling other people. He understood something modern society has forgotten. The greatest empire you will ever govern is your own mind. Lose control of that, and nothing else matters. Look around. How many people wake up already controlled? Before breakfast, they check who viewed their story. Before work, they compare themselves to strangers. Before sleeping, they replay conversations that ended hours ago. Their body is present. Their attention is imprisoned somewhere else. This is the hidden epidemic of the modern world. Not depression, not anxiety. Captured attention. Whoever captures your attention captures your future. That is why ignoring is power. Ignoring is deciding that your attention is too valuable to be auctioned to every opinion, every insult, every distraction, and every emotional trap. Think about how easily your focus is stolen. One negative comment erases 100 compliments. One betrayal overshadows years of loyalty. One rejection makes you question your worth. Why? Because your brain evolved to notice threats more than peace. Manipulative people understand this instinct. They know they don't need to make you happy. They only need to make you react. The moment you react, they have entered your mind without permission. And once someone occupies your mind, they begin influencing your decisions. This is why emotional discipline is not optional. It is mental security. Imagine leaving your front door wide open every night. Anyone could walk inside. Now imagine doing the same thing with your thoughts. Every opinion enters. Every criticism settles. Every rumor grows roots. Every insult builds a home. Would you call that freedom? Or would you call it surrender? Your mind deserves stronger walls than your house. Yet most people protect their possessions more carefully than their peace. They lock their cars. They protect their phones. They insure their homes. But they allow complete strangers unrestricted access to their emotions. One command, and their confidence disappears. One laugh, and they doubt themselves. One opinion, and they abandon years of conviction. That isn't sensitivity. It's dependency disguised as politeness. The harsh truth is that many people don't actually want respect. They want acceptance. There is a difference. Respect comes from character. Acceptance comes from conformity. One requires courage, the other requires compromise. Every time you betray your values just to avoid someone's disapproval, you trade a piece of yourself for temporary comfort. At first, the price feels small. You stay quiet when you should speak. You agree when you disagree. You apologize for things that were never your fault. You shrink yourself so others can feel bigger. Eventually, you wake up unable to recognize the person you've become, not because someone stole your identity, because you gave it away one compromise at a time. This is why Epictetus taught that no one can enslave the person who governs their own mind. Chains are rarely made of iron. More often, they are made of approval. Every person you need emotionally becomes someone with power over you. Read that carefully. Need creates leverage. This is true in relationships. It is true in friendships. It is true in business. It is true in life. The less desperately you need something, the more clearly you can think. Desperation clouds judgment. Detachment sharpens it. Have you ever noticed how your best decisions are rarely made in emotional desperation? When you're calm, you see possibilities. When you're desperate, you see only escape. That is why manipulators create urgency. Answer now. Choose now. Prove yourself now. Pressure is designed to bypass wisdom. A disciplined mind refuses to rush. Silence creates space. Space creates clarity. Clarity creates power. Power creates freedom. That is the sequence most people never experience because they interrupt it with panic. They cannot tolerate uncertainty, so they rush into certainty even if it hurts them. Think about the last time someone ignored you. What happened inside your mind? Did you create stories? Did you assume they hated you? Did you imagine the worst? Nothing had actually happened, yet your imagination became your greatest enemy. The mind fills silence with fear when it lacks self-confidence. This is why ignoring is not merely about what you do to others. It is about what you stop doing to yourself. You stop inventing problems. You stop chasing explanations. You stop demanding closure from people incapable of giving it. You finally understand that closure is not something another person hands you. It is something you decide. The strongest sentence you will ever say often has no words. It is the silent decision. I am moving on. No announcement. No revenge. No dramatic goodbye. Just movement. Forward. Many people stay emotionally trapped because they confuse holding on with strength. But holding on to someone who repeatedly steals your peace is not loyalty. It is fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting again. Fear of discovering who you are without them. Yet, every great transformation begins with loss. You lose old habits before gaining discipline. You lose illusions before gaining wisdom. You lose dependency before gaining freedom. Growth always feels like something is dying, because something is the weaker version of you, and that version will not disappear quietly. It will beg you to go back to explaining, back to chasing, back to proving, back to reacting, back to seeking permission to become who you were always capable of being. Do not listen. The voice inside you that craves immediate comfort is rarely the voice leading you toward greatness. Comfort has an agenda. It wants today to feel easier. Discipline has a different agenda. It wants your future to become stronger. Most people choose comfort because the reward is immediate. Few choose discipline because the reward is invisible. But invisible rewards become visible lives. Years later, people will call you lucky. They will say you became confident naturally. They will assume you were born emotionally strong. They will never see the thousands of moments where you chose silence over reaction, peace over revenge, growth over validation, freedom over approval. That is the hidden cost of becoming unshakable. No audience applauds your private victories. Yet those private victories create the public strength everyone admires. And here is the deepest truth most people never realize. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is emotional indifference, rooted in inner peace. Hate still gives someone your attention. Revenge still gives someone your energy. Bitterness still keeps someone alive inside your mind. Only genuine inner freedom releases them completely. When someone can no longer provoke you, no longer distract you, no longer define your mood, no longer influence your choices, you have done something extraordinary. You have taken back ownership of your own mind. But don't mistake this for the final stage, because there is one hidden attachment even disciplined people struggle to see. It is quieter than approval, stronger than rejection, more dangerous than criticism, and unless you recognize it, it will silently rebuild every chain you have just broken. You don't lose your freedom in one dramatic moment. You lose it in quiet moments no one notices. A glance that lingers too long after someone disapproves of you, a sleepless night replaying words that cannot be taken back, a morning ruined by a message that never arrived. None of these feel like chains, yet together they become a prison. This is why Stoic wisdom begins where most self-help ends. It doesn't ask, how do I control other people? It asks, why have I allowed other people to control me? There is a painful honesty in that question. It refuses to let you become the victim of every circumstance. It quietly places responsibility back into your hands, not because the world is fair, but because your mind is the only kingdom you can truly govern. Imagine standing beside a river after a violent storm. The water is muddy, loud, and impossible to see through. You wouldn't expect to find your reflection there. You would simply wait. Slowly, without forcing anything, the current settles. The mud sinks. The surface becomes clear again. Your mind works the same way. Every emotional reaction stirs the water. Every argument clouds your judgment. Every desperate attempt to force an outcome creates more confusion than clarity. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology gave it scientific language. A disturbed mind cannot perceive reality accurately. This is why your greatest decisions should never be made in your greatest emotional storms. When your emotions demand immediate action, wisdom often whispers, wait. That whisper is easy to ignore, but learning to hear it changes your life. Think about the moments you regret most. How many were created because you waited? Very few. Most were born because you reacted too quickly. A message sent in anger. Words spoken in pride. A relationship destroyed by impulse. A reputation damaged by one emotional decision. Your emotions promised relief. Instead, they created consequences. That is why emotional restraint is not weakness. It is intelligence under pressure. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that he would meet difficult, selfish, arrogant, and unreasonable people. Not because he was pessimistic, but because he understood human nature. When those people appeared, he wasn't surprised. He wasn't emotionally ambushed. He had already accepted that they existed. Acceptance is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. Most people think acceptance means giving up. It doesn't. Acceptance means refusing to waste energy fighting reality. You stop asking why selfish people act selfishly. You stop being shocked when dishonest people lie. You stop expecting emotionally immature people to suddenly become emotionally mature. The moment you stop arguing with reality, reality loses its power to frustrate you. That realization is quieter than motivation, but it lasts much longer. Now, ask yourself something uncomfortable. How much of your suffering comes from reality, and how much comes from insisting reality should be different? That question has no easy answer. Sit with it. Don't rush. This is one of those rare moments where silence teaches more than words. Notice how your mind immediately searched for examples. That is awareness. Most people never pause long enough to witness their own thinking. They are dragged through life by thoughts they never chose, The Stoic path begins the moment you become the observer instead of the prisoner. You realize that not every thought deserves belief. Not every emotion deserves obedience. Not every impulse deserves action. This is the beginning of inner authority. The average person believes confidence is built by winning. The Stoic knows confidence is built by enduring. Every disappointment survived becomes evidence. Every rejection faced without losing yourself becomes proof. Every insult ignored becomes another brick in the foundation of your character. Character is not built when life applauds you. Character is built when life tries to break you and fails. There is a reason mountains are respected. Not because they move, because they remain. Become like that. Not cold, not emotionless, but rooted. Let people bring their chaos without pulling you into it. Let them misunderstand you without forcing explanations. Let them gossip without making your reputation your identity. Remember this: people can attack your image. They cannot attack your character unless you help them. Those are two completely different things. One exists in their imagination. The other exists in your choices. Modern life has convinced you that visibility is power. Post more, explain more, defend more, respond faster, share everything. The Stoics would likely ask a different question. What if your greatest strength grows in what you refuse to reveal? Silence has always unsettled insecure people. Not because silence is mysterious, because silence denies them information. When you stop explaining every decision, people begin creating stories. Let them. Their stories belong to them. Your peace belongs to you. There is freedom in no longer managing other people's opinions. That freedom cannot be purchased. It must be practiced, day after day, moment after moment, reaction after reaction. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The insults become quieter, not because people stopped speaking, because your mind stopped listening. The criticism still exists. It simply no longer finds a place to live inside you. That is emotional immunity, not avoiding negativity, becoming too grounded for negativity to take root. Seneca warned that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Look honestly at your own life. How many battles exhausted you before they even happened? How many conversations did you rehearse that never occurred? How many sleepless nights were spent fearing outcomes that never arrived? The imagination is a remarkable servant. It is a terrible master. An undisciplined imagination manufactures prisons out of possibilities. A disciplined imagination builds courage from the same uncertainty. The difference is not circumstance. It is perception. Perception determines experience. This is one of the deepest Stoic insights. The event is neutral. Your judgment gives it emotional weight. Remove the judgment, and much of the suffering dissolves with it. This is not denial. It is liberation. Imagine someone insults you. One person hears disrespect. Another hears insecurity. Another hears pain. Another hears meaningless noise. The words never changed. Only the interpretation did. Now ask yourself, if interpretation creates experience, why continue choosing the interpretation that hurts you? Most people never realize they have a choice. You do. And with that realization comes responsibility. You can no longer blame every emotion on someone else. That truth feels heavy at first. Then it becomes incredibly freeing, because if your perception creates your prison, it can also create your freedom. There is another trap waiting for those who begin mastering themselves. It is far more subtle than anger, far more respectable than insecurity. It disguises itself as virtue. It whispers, "You have changed. Now everyone should recognize your growth." Be careful. That is approval addiction wearing a Stoic mask. Real transformation does not demand recognition. A tree does not ask the forest to applaud its roots. It simply keeps growing. Do the same. Your discipline is not a performance. Your silence is not a strategy. Your peace is not something to display. It is something to protect. Because the moment your identity depends on people noticing your growth, you have quietly returned to the very prison you escaped. That is why the Stoic journey never truly ends. Every level of freedom reveals a deeper attachment. Every attachment invites another lesson. Every lesson demands another surrender. And perhaps the hardest surrender of all is the one almost no one sees coming. The need to prove that you have become powerful. The truly powerful never feel compelled to announce their strength, because they already know it. And in the next part, you'll uncover the final paradox of ignoring the hidden reason why the people who stop chasing almost always become the ones everyone begins chasing, and why the greatest form of power is one that never needs to be seen. The greatest form of power is the one that never needs to be seen. That is the final paradox. The moment you stop trying to look powerful, you become powerful. The moment you stop trying to be respected, respect begins to follow you. The moment you stop chasing attention, your presence becomes unforgettable. This isn't magic. It is human nature. People value what cannot be manipulated. And nothing is more difficult to manipulate than a person who has already made peace with themselves. Imagine waking up tomorrow with nothing left to prove. No urge to impress. No need to win every argument. No desire to convince people who have already chosen not to understand you. How different would your life feel? How much lighter would your mind become? How much energy would return to you? Most people spend decades carrying emotional burdens that were never theirs to carry. Someone else's opinion, someone else's expectations, someone else's definition of success, someone else's approval. They carry these invisible weights until they forget what freedom even feels like. But freedom was never waiting for the world to change. It was waiting for you to stop surrendering your mind. This is the lesson hidden beneath every Stoic principle. You cannot always control what happens. You cannot control betrayal. You cannot control rejection. You cannot control criticism. You cannot control loss. But you can always control what happens next inside you. That is where your true power begins. Marcus Aurelius understood that every morning offered two choices: to become a slave to circumstances, or to become the master of his own response. The world still offers you those same two choices every single day. Every insult asks you a question: will you react, or will you rise? Every disappointment asks another: will you become bitter, or will you become wiser? Every rejection asks something even deeper: will you let this define your worth, or will you define your own? Life is constantly examining your character, not through easy days, through difficult ones. Storms reveal the strength of a tree's roots. Pressure reveals the strength of a person's mind. Never curse the pressure. It is revealing who you are becoming. Remember this whenever life feels unfair. The fire is not trying to destroy the gold. It is revealing it. You are no different. Every hardship burns away another illusion. The illusion that you need everyone's approval. The illusion that happiness comes from being understood. The illusion that peace depends on perfect circumstances. The illusion that your value rises and falls with other people's opinions. One by one, those illusions collapse. What remains is someone the world cannot easily shake. Not because life became easier, because your foundation became stronger. There will still be people who misunderstand you. Let them. There will still be people who leave. Let them. There will still be people who criticize your silence because they benefited from your reactions. Let them. Your responsibility is not to manage their perception. Your responsibility is to protect your character. There is an old Stoic insight that remains as powerful today as it was thousands of years ago. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Think about that. Every thought you entertain is painting your character. Every resentment you keep alive darkens your peace. Every act of gratitude brightens your perspective. Every disciplined decision strengthens your identity. The life you experience tomorrow is being created by the thoughts you practice today. Choose them carefully. One day, without even realizing it, you'll notice something extraordinary. The things that once triggered you no longer reach you. The people who once controlled your emotions no longer occupy your thoughts. The silence that once frightened you becomes your favorite place. Being alone no longer feels like loneliness. It feels like freedom. That is the moment you understand what ignoring truly means. Ignoring is not pretending people don't exist. Ignoring is refusing to give temporary people permanent space inside your mind. Ignoring is protecting your attention like your most valuable possession. Ignoring is choosing your future over your impulses. Ignoring is having enough respect for yourself to stop negotiating your peace. That is power. Not loud power. Not arrogant power. Not power that dominates others. Power that governs itself. And the person who governs themselves has already won the only battle that truly matters. Before you leave, I want you to make one promise, not to me, but to yourself. The next time someone tries to steal your peace, pause. Take one slow breath. Ask yourself one question. Is this worth my mind? If the answer is no, walk away. Not because you are weak, because your peace has become too valuable to waste. That single decision, repeated over weeks, months, and years, will reshape your entire life. People will notice the difference. Some will admire it. Some will resent it. Neither response matters, because for the first time, your direction is no longer controlled by applause or criticism. It is guided by principle. If this message challenged the way you think, let it become more than another video you watched. Let it become a decision. Write these words in the comments. My peace is not for sale. Let that be your declaration, not to impress anyone, but to remind yourself who you are becoming. If this video gave you a new perspective, take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who is trapped by other people's opinions and needs this message today. Every share helps this community reach another person searching for inner freedom. And if you're committed to mastering your mind instead of being mastered by the world, subscribe and become part of this journey. Every video we create is designed to challenge your thinking, strengthen your discipline, and help you build the unshakable mindset the Stoics believed every person was capable of achieving. Now don't stop here. The next video on your screen reveals the Stoic habit that silently destroys anxiety before it can control your life. It connects directly to everything you've learned today and will show you how to become emotionally untouchable in situations that once overwhelmed you. Click it now, because every minute you spend mastering your own mind is another minute the world loses its power over you. And remember, the strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. It is the one who has learned that the greatest victory is not controlling others, but becoming impossible to control.